Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be a video about the planner disaster. So I wanted to share this video with you because this planner setup that I started working on for a couple weeks was really cute, and I felt that it had a lot of tips and good ideas that I want to share with you anyway. But as you can see, the planner did fall apart, but rest assured there are some really good setups happening in this video. So here we go. This notebook is from Papernep. It is a notebook that I purchased from a stationery store here in New York. It's called Yosika Stationery in Brooklyn. And the notebook is around $14. I decided I wanted to purchase 3 or more. I think I ended up purchasing 5 to have 2 as extras. But I purchased these notebooks in person. Cost me a lot of money at $14 each, but the paper is so smooth, and that's the brand. It's Perpenep. And I feel like this notebook is very good to write on because the pages are very smooth, and that's what kind of draw me towards it. The color is like an ivory color. It's a little bit more cream than a Nostalgia notebook. I didn't really like that, but I was kind of okay with it because the paper smoothness kind of sold me. So my plans were to combine the notebooks together, sort of like how I did with the Nostalgia notebook. I will link that video below that shows you how to combine more than one Nostalgia notebook together, and also how to customize the cover. I did the same concept here, but instead of 2 notebooks, it's 3. So for this concept, you will have to remove both front and back of the middle notebook because they has to be glued together. So these are the 3. It equaled to around a little bit over 300 pages or less, a little less, and it was basically exactly what I needed because I wanted to have similar amount of pages compared to the Nostalgia, because when I tried to purchase other notebooks like the Archer and Olive and other kind of bullet journal style notebooks, they only have like 160 pages. So the concept is the same. I used the X-Acto knife to cut off the cover off one, and then I cut off the front and the back of another, which would be the middle. And then for the last notebook, I will cut the back off of it. I combine them the same way using my tape, and I use like a thin double-sided tape. It comes in like a circle. I purchased it from Amazon. I use that tape a lot during my crafting sessions because it's very durable. I really didn't have any issues using that tape since I've been using it for more than a year now. So in addition to the double-sided tape, I also use the tape roller for some parts of this project that you will see coming up. So the next thing were to kind of measure and see how much of this notebook I'm going to trim. Because this notebook is an A5 size, it's obviously a little bit too big for my notebook, my Paul notebook cover. So this is how it looked after I binded them together. It does look like just one notebook, and I really love that the side was like a white, so it didn't really have much imperfections to cover. I could have left it that way if I wanted to. So when I'm figuring out what size to cut the notebook, I usually just put the notebook in the planner and kind of eye it. If you're using like a cover and you want to get like a perfect fit of a notebook, I suggest purchasing a notebook that's a little bit bigger, making your measurements, and take it to your local FedEx store or Staples. I heard they do it there as well, and they will be able to cut it down for you. So my final measurements were 7.5 by 5.25. This way it will fit perfectly. So this is how I mark the notebook to share with the employees where I want to have it cut. But I also tell them the measurements. I don't know, I just double work, but they seem to not mind, and they say that it's very helpful. I just tell them to cut in front of the washi tape, like here. This is how it looks after it's been cut. Super professional, and it looks like it's one notebook. I don't see that separation line in the notebooks when I put them together. That's one reason why I like cutting them after I fuse them together. and it fits perfectly. I have a little bit of space so I can add my tabs either at the top or the bottom, but perfect fit. I did go ahead and add a little bit more glue to that little section, and it kind of just worked out. So the next step was to gather some papers that I wanted to include, possibly wanted to include. The first tip is, if you're setting up any planner, it's a good idea to look through your stash. We tend to have a lot of things that we may have forgotten that we've purchased: craft paper, dashboards, things we're not using anymore. Look through those items before purchasing new ones. This way you can kind of get an idea of what you need to purchase. And it also saves money. So a lot of times when I am setting up a planner, I obviously need craft paper, so I check my craft stash. I need dashboards. I look through my stash of dashboards. And also, if I have a planner that I'm not using that I may have put together, if there's any dashboards inside of it, I'll go ahead and take that and actually use that in the new setup. But I don't take from a planner that, like my 2021 planner, I wouldn't take anything from it because I need everything to remain the same. I want to preserve it the way how it is to show the memories for the year. So this was the next thing I did. This entire setup took me a couple weeks, and I had over an hour of footage just kind of sharing the process of how I put this planner together. This is why in the very end, I was actually very upset that the planner started falling apart. And I didn't even look or try to set up another planner for a few days after that because I was just so bummed about it. But everything happens for a reason, and I'm actually in the process of setting up a new planner that I will share. But more tips are going to come in this video, and I really wanted you to see how beautiful it would have came out. So the next thing that I did, this was at night. I usually get my creative juices at night, and I like the peace and quiet, so I do things at night. I layered the dashboards along with the acetate. This is all in the video on how to customize your cover. What I did was I had a dashboard acetate, a smaller acetate to kind of create a layered look. And then on top, I cut down this A5 card holder from Filofax. I actually got it from Amazon, so you can pick that up as well. And these little cards were cards that I made on Canva. This one at the bottom, I had an emergency contact card that I ended up not using, that I'm not using in the new setup, and you'll see that. So try to do some designs with the pockets. And one thing when I'm setting up the planner, I like to do the pockets and the front cover of the notebook together because I want it to kind of match. I like it to be cohesive and look uniform because this is the most looked at section when I first open my planner, and I just want it to be inviting. And I spend a lot of time in this section because it's just kind of playing around and figuring out what works from what does not work, and then I will move on to the next part. For the remainder of setting up the planner, I don't necessarily need the cover. It's just for this initial task. I do it all together. That little circle planner sticker, I will link the shop for that. I don't remember the name off the top of my head because I have a bad memory, but I purchased a few of her stickers and I will look it up. So the next step was to start working on the inside. So this part of the process takes the longest because I usually look through dashboards and acetate to kind of figure out what looks good. These dashboards are from Indian Ivy Ink. She's on Instagram and you can look her up. And some of the vellum that I'm using is from the Planner Spot. Both shops I really like. It's just kind of going through things and seeing what looks good. This is where I took the inbox dashboard out of my GM because I was no longer using it. So this is why I say you can look through your planners that you're not using to see if there's anything inside of it that you want to incorporate into your new setup, because it also saves money and you can reuse and kind of recycle the things that you have instead of always buying new things. So for the left side of the right behind the cover, I use this vellum from the Planner Spot. And because it's clear, I added white paper underneath it so that it does not have like a grayish blue hue. I glued the paper together with the vellum, and it just made the vellum pop a little bit more. I'm using the tape runner that I love to use, but what I usually do is in the crease of where I'm inserting the paper, I add a small strip of tape. So always put a lot of tape when you're gluing it down, because you want to make sure that it sticks in the notebook and it does not start to come up. The edges are super important because sometimes with a notebook, this is where it always starts to lift a little bit. So just make sure you secure the edges when you're putting any insert inside of the planner. So I just kind of see, that's what I'm doing, put an extra tape around the edges to make sure that it's intact. I did use the rounder to punch the corners to make them round like the notebook, but you can do that if you want, or you can just keep it as square. The new setup that I'm working on is going to be square. So this is where I added the single strip of tape to the crease, because that's the area that I want to secure the most. I just make sure that is fully sticky, and I just add the paper in it, and then it sticks perfectly. So as you add paper, you'll notice that your planner will become bulky. I have a tip for that. So this is the inbox dashboard, and I end up using clear tape versus my white tape that I usually use. I use the white because it matches more with the paper, and I'm not really a fan of the Scotch tape because it's too thick. Not thick. It makes the notebook, it doesn't make it close as good. The washi tape is softer, and I feel like it's more flexible. So this is how I insert it. I use a ruler, and then I close it over just to kind of make sure it sticks in between, and then I kind of crease the back of it, and this will ensure that it's properly secured. So the process of me inserting extra pages in the notebook, I use washi tape that I trim in half. I'm going to show you how that is done coming up. It's a good tip because it's a lot easier and you don't need a full width of a tape. So these little corners, these are actually called notebook protectors or book protectors. That was supposed to be the finishing touch to this notebook setup, but I will use that in a new one just to kind of utilize the things that I have. So here I am going over the layout for the notebook. I use a blank notebook and I kind of create the entire layout on paper. So as I'm writing the sections in the notebook, it's not too complicated and I know where everything needs to be. When you do so, it takes a lot of guessing out of what goes next when you're creating your pages. And being that this is a notebook, you cannot just take a page out and then add more inserts. You really have to be strategic about how you set this up, and especially if you have different sections that you want to kind of work together as one planner. So the lines on the notepad indicate each section. So I look through my old planner and kind of get an idea of what I use the most, and the section that I created in my planner for things that I would like in my 2022 planner, I looked at that section and added it as well. And I also counted like how many pages in between sections so I know what I'm doing. You can try that. It's a very helpful tip and it works all the time. So the back of the notebook, in the cover, I use some paper from the paper source. It's like wrapping paper. It's very thick and it has like a luxurious feel. I just taped it on the back, so when I look at the back of the notebook, it's also pretty. Here I am just testing out a couple pens because I'm new to this paper. I just wanted to kind of see how much shadowing these pens would cause when I write with it. And it did not have a lot of shadowing, and I really love that because this paper was kind of like exactly what I'm looking for. If I could have this paper in like a Stalogy notebook, if they could just make their paper like this, I believe this would be like the perfect planner. I'm not even kidding. So this page in the back was also supposed to be like my Tombow brush pen test to show like how each of it looks. So here is the first boo-boo. I noticed that this page just came out And it was at that point I realized that this notebook is not stitched. It's all just bind together with glue and that book binding cloth that you see on the white book binding cloth. So this is not really a good concept because it does not make the notebook secure, and we see what happened in that case. So these are some stencils that I got from Amazon. You're able to create your monthly layout. You can use it for habit trackers, decor. They have so many different layouts with the set that I got. I purchased two, and this is what I used to make my monthly section. I was going to make a monthly section in the front where I have all the months, sort of like how you would have in like a regular planner where everything is in the front. That was the concept. So here, this is another day. I've already gone ahead and added my little post-it notes that indicated where I'm going to start, like the months, what page is going to have what. I did this for this notebook because the paper was thicker. I don't suggest using this method in the Stalogy because I did this one time, and when I removed the post-it, the Stalogy paper is very thin and delicate. You have to be very careful with it. So this was post-it brand notes, post-its, and they stuck very well. So I was able to write it all. But if you're using this concept for the Stalogy, use like some post-it notes that does not stick well because it does not give a lot of friction when you're trying to pull it up. So I added all of the dashboards that I wanted, and this is kind of like the process of me putting it together. So these are the dashboards that I use as a divider because I'm going to add tabs to it. The tabs that I'm using are from Avery, and it's very easy to install, and I'm going to use the label maker to label each section. So adding the inserts is pretty easy with the concept that I'm going to show you. I try to use washi tape that is as close to the color, if I'm using white obviously, and also that matches the notebook. So the washi tape that I'm using is from Amazon. I will link that as well, and I have some from the Muji store. So basically I measure the length of the insert, set up like a guide on my cutting board, put the tape on it, and cut down in the middle. This way I get like even pieces, and I just create like a bunch of strips. This way I'm not cutting for each insert that I'm trying to add in the notebook. This way is a lot easier than cutting washi tape with scissors because it will start to fold up if you do it that way. So if you don't have this, you can kind of put it on a cutting board that has like measurements, line it up, and just with a ruler, use a ruler as a guide to cut it down straight. My pages has never gotten ripped out, even though I only used half of the washi tape. I've been using this for quite some time and I never had any issues. And it also is less bulky on the planner. I feel like I don't see like a big piece of washi. It looks like it's a part of the notebook. So that's just the kind of look that I like, and it's been helpful since I've been doing so. I do use a ruler just to make sure that it gets into the creases properly. And this is to kind of like dig it like deep in. And then I always like close the notebook and mash down on it just a little bit just to kind of like tack it in. This is the same concept that I did for the rest of the notebook. I did this for all of these dashboards that I created. They're printed on parchment paper. I use parchment paper versus cardstock for these dashboards because they are a little bit thinner, less bulky, but they give the planner such a different look that I really just love that aspect of it. So this is what I use, and it's the same concept that I use for all of it. So if you want to use like a transparent scotch tape, you can use that and try to cut it in half the same way that I did this. So the point of me having these dashboards to basically divide up each section, I was going to use the Avery tabs along with my label maker to label each of these, and that would be like my divider. The Avery tabs are very durable. I've used them for a long time and I don't have any issues, so I was going to continue to use that. But I didn't get to that part yet because shortly after I started with writing inside, that's where it all starts to fall apart. So as I add these inserts in the planner, one thing that I did notice is that the planner started to become very bulky. It was to a point where the planner did not close properly. And I'm not sure if that is a reason that added to the demise of this notebook. Maybe it just couldn't hold up with the pressure and, you know, everything that I have going on. But the planner didn't really close flat like I would like for it to be able to just close flat. So what I did to kind of fix that is I put some really heavy books on top of it. Anything that you have that's super heavy. I also added like a plant in a vase. This plant was already very heavy and I just let it sit overnight. And in the morning, it was flat, just like how it would be with a new planner. So that's something you can do no matter what stage you are in the planner. It's kind of reinforces everything and just keep it looking nice and flat. This way it doesn't like just cocks up when you have the planner laying down. So I also planned to add bookmarks to this notebook, but I didn't really get to that point yet. But you can see the notebook, it started to kind of shift a little. I just thought it was just this design and I didn't really think too much of it. I should have realized that this was going to be a disaster, you know, come to the end. But here we are. We're going to start using our stencils to make the monthly layout. Being that it's the front of the planner, the front is usually a little bit lopsided because there is no support underneath it because it's only the very beginning. What you can do is put another notebook underneath it to kind of prop it up. As you see, I'm using a Stalogy notebook and I basically created like an even flat surface across. These are just some little things that has helped with using the notebook over the past year. These are kind of things that can be a nuisance to some people and maybe deter you from using it, but this is an option. This is also going to be even worse when you combine more than one notebooks together because now you're going to have a bigger hump. So this is important, or sometimes you can like fold the planner out to create that steady surface. So on this stencil, I have washi tape on the sides and on the bottom. This kind of helps secure the stencil. Not secure, but it's my guide to where I need to put the stencil on the paper so that the box come out even on both left and right side. I also have washi tape on the opposite side. This is not the only layout that they have. There are different layouts for the monthly, but I just wanted to try this one because I like the space in between. It makes it look less cluttered, and that's why I picked this one. My only issue with using this is a personal issue, which is me trying to figure out how many boxes I needed for the month without having any extra box, because I wanted to have some space around the monthly box so I can put notes. And I also feel like less is more on the pages when you're doing your monthly spread because it gets super busy over time. So that was kind of like a gripe. I think maybe by March, I kind of got the concept. I just looked on the calendar and counted the weeks and kind of mentally counted it in my head and figured it out. I did mess up on one of the months, so what I did was I cut some of the paper and glued it over and kind of redid it. Can't really tell, but this is kind of like the most annoying part of it, was me just trying to figure out where everything needed to go and making sure that I have the right boxes. That's something that you can just maybe take your time if you're a little bit hesitant, or try to use pencil and not pen like I did, because I don't listen to myself sometimes. But these stencils are a lifesaver. I loved how easy they were to use. And I like that there are different options for the monthly layout if I didn't want this particular spread. So when I started writing, things were going really good. except for when I got to maybe like the middle of the year with the monthly. I noticed that the notebook really started to kind of shift, the pages kind of shift a little bit. Didn't think anything of it. Once again, I'm already so deep into setting this up that I didn't want to think that anything bad was happening to the notebook. It's not that visible, so I didn't pay attention. I wrote out the months, and I also wrote out the weeks, and then I put little numbers underneath directly on the top of each box to indicate the day of the week. This was the layout that I basically wanted to do throughout the planner because I felt that it was not too much. It was just perfect. And I wanted to keep these monthly pages as neutral as possible because I wanted to leave the decorating part to when the month actually arrive. And I decorate the page for whatever theme that I'm going for. So this happened off camera. When I stopped recording, I noticed that one of the page came out, and then look how easy it came apart. So this notebook is only binded by glue. There's no stitching to kind of keep them together. So I didn't really want to commit further to setting this up for the rest of the year because I was scared that it's not going to last me for the entire year, and I was not going to tape all the pages down. So that was the end of this, and I started working on a new notebook that I will share soon. I was just a little bit disappointed, and it caused a delay in me getting back on track and picking something else.